Hey, this is Matty D with Matty D Media and possibly All Business Videography, depending on where you're watching this video. We just wrapped up a sales call, myself and Aylea Cole, a social media manager, and we discussed sales tips for our service business and sales tips in general. And Aylea kind of led off this discussion with a great strategy that she's using that's not only a sales tip in the long run, but just a great public relations and communication professional tactic to take. So let's start today's training video with that.
And then the next video that I'm working on was in response to the comment about like, oh, well, you can just do this thing at home. You can just buy this transfer software and do it
Did somebody
yourself.
say that?
Yeah, we had a comment that said that. So I've been working on a video that just kind of is like addressing that and saying like, you can do this, but then you'd also need a functioning VHS player. You'd also need maybe a camcorder, depending on the kind of tape. And then, maybe you don't have the time or the technical prowess to do that kind of thing. So while it just another video talking about like the benefits and why it is a helpful service for some people.
That's great. Well,
Thank you.
kudos to you for addressing that. I I was actually on my checklist here. I was eventually going to get to this point, but now is a better time for it. Is that you have to be willing to kind of go out of your comfort zone and also address things like in communication. If you don't own the story, you're not doing your job. So it's not only owning the story and addressing the cynics. Like the main thing is, of course, you want to identify who your audience is, but you also, with any piece of content, especially if you're just blasting it out to the masses, like you want to have a kernel in there for the cynics and you want to have a kernel in there for your super fans, because oftentimes you're not really dealing with a gray area. You're a lot of times you're dealing with somebody who's like, they know they need that service, so there's kind of your super fans in a way, or they're a fan of you or
Mhm.
Kansas local business, whatever reason they're on the super fan category, or they're a cynic, like, or they're trolling you. So I appreciate you taking initiative and addressing that, because that's definitely like hitting on a lot of different keys in
Okay.
terms of our like our mission and core values. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was definitely something I did learn at the roofing company because on roofing TikTok, there are a lot of skeptics. So I had to make a couple videos responding to different, comments just being snarky. But in those videos, you focus on the people that you are targeting towards because, like, contradicting this troll essentially in, like you said, controlling the narrative, controlling the story, that's beneficial to those people. And then also, sometimes you just want to remind those skeptics that, like, not everyone is an expert like you may be in the subject. So that's kind of the twofold approach I take to responding to comments like that.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
The next sort of textbook chapter of this training video here is going to be reaching out to other symbiotic businesses. So when you're in a service-based business, this is a textbook tool that you should always be using. And this is why I'm in networking groups, because a videographer works perfectly with a website designer. If we run into a client that thinks that he or she needs a video for their business, but they don't even have a functioning website, like, hey, you need to go work with this website designer, get your shit together before we're going to produce a video for you that you think you're going to get any results from, because you can't.
Mhm.
People who expect a home run are going to ultimately be a dead end for everybody's business. So with that said, I'm going to rattle off some symbiotic businesses that
Yeah.
I think we should be reaching out to. Symbiotic businesses that may have a two-way relationship with the VHS to digital. So I'm thinking about like junk removal companies. If they're removing junk, obviously they might come across a treasure trove of VHS tapes. And if we reach out to those companies, if we do any sort of volume with them, we're always open to kind of behind the scenes, giving a discount, where there's 10% discount, 20% discount, and that might be another value that they can offer, to their clients, and ultimately like the clients who serve as a broker to be able to kind of connect people with other vendors that can add value, like that only helps their reputation. So again, it's always a win-win-win. So junk removal and estate management companies, I think that we definitely need to reach out to those. Turning your existing clients into future clients, that's a textbook tool to use. I remember working at Cutco Knives, selling knives as my first ever sales job, and they famously, like, when you'd sell a knife, you would ask for 10 friends and families, and you would sit there with a pad and pen and jot down, and you'd say, hey, if you enjoyed the service, you enjoyed this product, do you have 5 to 10 friends who you'd feel comfortable with me reaching out to? And I think in your own language, I think that you should be asking the same question. What are your thoughts on all of that?
Yeah, I think referral is a pretty good way to go, and it's a good place to start when you are just, I guess. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would probably start with that before most other things, because that feels like the most potentially immediate return, but I have your other options.
I think especially now with AI is doing so much of the legwork online in terms of presenting Matty D Media and these services to the audience, but it's when you introduce the human being into the equation that has a multiplier effect and really ramps up sales. It's an opportunity to really kind of pair the two. A good example of this, I was talking to a car salesman at a business group the other day, and he was talking about how their AI chatbot is so sophisticated that it takes the potential buyer so far down the road of the sales discovery that it reaches a point to where a person is coming to test drive a car, or it reaches a point where it's mission critical that the human being there at the dealership really needs to be alert and ready to go to meet the person or take a live call. And so he was kind of joking around about that make or break moment to where AI is buzzing their phones and sending out the alert hey, you need to enter this here. But so we're gonna be judged by how many followers we have, not only how many followers we have, but how much revenue you bring in.
Yeah, okay.
And
yeah, that's
so
I need to have that data
so
available.
and so I would like to create a comfort zone together, you and I, 1-to-1, where I'm challenging you on the numbers and you're challenging me on the numbers. So what ideas, the amount of followers is only one metric, right? But we can sell this service even if we have 10 followers. So what ideas do you have to sell the service better, whether it's using Facebook or not?
I think maybe looking at just monthly view counts. They have the summaries, monthly view counts over a period of time, engagement rates, page likes. I think when I started on the roofing page, they had a couple hundred likes. Now they have 27,000. That is a good one. That isn't necessarily follower dependent, because followers are kind of something you do have to take slow and steady unless you get really, really lucky with a great viral video. But I think page likes, that's a pretty substantial increase that I could show off. And then, of course, I don't have this data for the roofing company, but website conversions or website to homepage views, contact forms.
So 3 questions that you should be asking when you make these cold calls.
Yes.
You ask, do you have an employee or a vendor who does this service? And that's psychological too, because they're going to say no.
No.
And
yeah.
And that's okay. That's gonna get their wheels turning in a different way. You say, well, if if this doesn't happen, what is the alternative? Like, that's a great question from a sales standpoint to ask.
Mhm.
You know, like, if you don't fix your roof in the next 5 years, what do you think is going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. We'll probably have leaks in our basement. But with that one, if it's a wedding venue, maybe the stakes are a little lower. There's plenty of
Mhm.
entertainment going on. But I think you get the point. And then
Yeah.
the other question you should always ask is whether you should whether you are allowed to email information about our service. They're going to say yes, but that's important consent to get,
Mhm.
so no one can ever blame us for, you know, spamming them.
Yeah.
And that's a two-part question. That is also your opportunity to ask for the marketing director's email, because ultimately, whether it's the VHS to digital service or whether it's, you know, as we continue to progress towards like a video production, social media combo, like we need to be capturing marketing directors' email addresses.
Mhm.
I think that the call is going to end here in seconds.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the final word.
Mm. Yeah. I think I'm all set.